Alright, are we live? Are we live or are we not live? Let me just check. Give me a moment, you guys. Okay, we are live. Oh, very good morning, everybody. A very, very good morning. Hope you had a brilliant Dashara yesterday. Made the most of, the evening festivities. Right. So today, I'm back. I'm returning with another verbal drill for you guys. Another practice that should basically give you a lot of semblance of what you can expect, as to what you can expect in your management exams. Right. Before we begin, though, allow me to give you a small introduction to the Unacademy portal, the Unacademy platform. Unacademy, as you guys would already know, is India's largest learning platform today when it comes to preparing for any kind of competitive exam. This YouTube channel is particularly for management exams such as your GMAT, NMAT, CAT, ZAT, MAT, CMAT, and the likes, right? I am Prankur Arora. I'll be taking you on this journey of learning. Um been in the learning industry for the past couple of years where I've had the opportunity to consult with various organizations such as Marico Limited, ITC Limited, um, Becton Dickinson, PGCIL, Interglobe Air Transport, right? Quite a lot of organizations, different industries, different areas of employee functions that I address. Um, Along with that, I am a published author. I wrote this book called It's Not Funny. It's a work of satirical fiction, got published a couple of years back, even garnered favorable reviews from the likes of Papa CJ, Biswapati Sarkar, comedy legends in the game, right? So if you're fond of reading fiction or dark satirical humor, be sure to check it out. I also hold advanced certifications in facilitation from an American organization called Leadership Management International. LMI is today the world's largest organization working in the space of transformational leadership. Plus, I co founded this company called Thought Sutra. It's an internet company working in the field of creative arts, democratizing the learning of creative arts. So, if you're fond of any creative activity, be sure to check it out, thoughtsutra.com, right? So yeah, that's pretty much about me. Welcome aboard this journey of learning. I'll be essentially taking you through various aspects pertaining to the verbal ability and the reading comprehension sections of these management exams. So there are quite a lot of features that add to the Unacademy pedagogy. Some of those features include giving you access to daily live classes, where all kinds of interaction between the educator and the learners happens in real time. Right? You can engage in discussions, ask your doubts, clear your doubts. Plus, all the question answers happen in the form of live polls. So that's another adrenaline rush altogether. Trust me. We also conduct and evaluate your performance with regular live tests and quizzes. Mm. The idea of these mock tests is to give you detailed analysis on your performance, give you a lot of perspective about where you stand and where you ought to improve. Plus, all the courses on the platform, these are structured courses, they're in line with the exam syllabus, and they're there to help you get the best out of your preparation. Plus, with one subscription to the platform, you get unlimited access to anything and everything, all kinds of live and recorded courses that you can access from the comfort of any of your devices. We've got a variety of educators, all of whom are highly credible people who've been working in this space for a long, long time, right? Highly credible people who've successfully mentored thousands and thousands of aspirants into various top tier management institutions, be it your IMs, your MDIs, XLRIs, ISBs, you name it, they've cracked it, basically. You can experience all the live classes on the platform for free, start learning from the best of educators, new batches, new courses. They keep on going live. Plus, language is never a barrier. We've got educators who teach in regional languages as well. So, if you're not as comfortable with English, You've got educators who'd be teaching in, a regional language that you were brought upon, right? Plus, you design your own schedule when it comes to the platform. You can enroll in unlimited number of courses, set up a personalized schedule according to the teachers, the educators you want to be learning from, and then we'll send you all those timely reminders so that you don't miss out on anything you set your eyes on. Um, Another really important thing is that, during the lesson today, you will see that I'll be scribbling a lot of stuff on the class notes. So, all these class notes with educator annotations, they're made available for you once you subscribe to the platform. Plus, talking of subscription, you can clearly see on the screen that as the time period of your subscription goes up, the cost of the subscription per month is going down dramatically, right? So if you're preparing for 2021, I would highly recommend that you go for at least a 6 month or a 12-month journey. The idea is we all understand that preparing for such exams is a huge undertaking, right? Takes time. You've got to give yourself that comfort of time. So I would recommend at least a 6 month or a 12-month journey. Plus, if you use my first name, Prankur, you get an extra 10% off on any of the subscriptions that you go for. Right. Having said that, let's begin the lesson for the day. We are beginning with a comparison question today. Right, we can clearly see what are we contrasting here. We're talking about the yellow jacket, right? So we are contrasting an insect with another insect. Yellow jacket is an insect. The yellow jacket can sting repeatedly without dying and carries a potent venom that can cause intense pain. Now, it says, as contrasted with the honeybee, in contrast to the honeybees. Again, what are we talking about here? We are talking about honeybee sting. We cannot contrast sting with yellow jacket. We need to contrast an insect with the yellow jacket. So this makes sense. Again, unlike the sting, so B and C are out because they're talking about the sting and not the honeybee. Unlike that of the honeybee, again, that is the sting that refers to the sting. So we eliminate D as well. The only viable options are option A and E. As contrasted with the honeybee, the yellow jacket, or unlike the honeybee. Unlike the honeybee is simpler, unlike the honeybee is shorter and crisper, right? So we'll go with E over A. Unlike the honeybee, the yellow jacket can sting repeatedly without dying and carries a potent venom that can cause intense pain. Yes, let's move on to the next question. This is again a comparison question. Figure out what are we comparing. Unlike the buildings in Mesopotamian cities, again, so what are we drawing the comparison on? Unlike the buildings. Okay, so we are comparing buildings which were arranged haphazardly. The same basic plan was followed for all cities. So we are comparing buildings with plan. Does not make sense. Eliminate A. Unlike the buildings, okay, again we are comparing buildings which were haphazard in arrangement. The same basic plan was used in all cities. Again, buildings and plan. This comparison does not make sense either. Unlike the arrangement of buildings, so we are comparing arrangement of buildings in Mesopotamian cities, which were haphazard. The cities of the Indus Valley does not make sense at all. Unlike Mesopotamian cities in which buildings were arranged haphazardly, the cities of the Indus Valley all followed the same basic plan. So we are comparing cities with Mesopotamian cities. Makes sense. D looks like a viable answer option. Unlike Mesopotamian cities, which had buildings that were arranged haphazardly, the same basic plan. Again, you're comparing cities with plan does not make sense. Eliminate option E. So the only option that kind of makes sense in a very viable way is option D, where you're comparing cities, Mesopotamian cities with cities of the Indus Valley, right? So you're comparing cities with cities, apples with apples, right? So D seems like the best answer option available to us right now. Now we arrive at a reasoning question. Which of the following conclusions can be drawn from the above? Let's read the passage. A study published in 2006 by Friedrich Schneider on the world's shadow economies dealt briefly with the tax morality of Germans. According to the study, two-thirds of the Germans surveyed regarded tax evasion as a trivial offense, while only one-third judged stealing a newspaper this way. Indian tax morality is similar, but it takes a distinction between expatriate illicit money, which is viewed as a serious crime perpetrated by the very corrupt, and money held within India, which is perceived as a practical measure. So, what is the situation in the passage? The situation in the passage is we're talking about tax morality of Germans. We're talking about what? We're talking about a study that was done. So few people were surveyed, and those who surveyed, two-thirds of that crowd regarded tax evasion as very trivial, while one-third judged stealing newspaper this way, right? Indian tax morality, then they draw an analogy. They say Indian tax morality is similar, but it makes a distinction between money that is abroad, black money abroad, which is viewed as a serious crime, and black money within India, which is seen as practical. So if your parents are putting money, or if you are putting money for that matter, forget parents, if you're putting money in the Cayman Islands or the Swiss banks, it is viewed as serious offense. But if you put all that money, in your bed or in your cupboard or a locker room in the cupboard, then it is viewed as practical, right? So again, a very, very, fascinating thing about the Indians. So let's look at all the answer options. Two-thirds of the Germans evade tax and consider it only a trivial offense. Not at all. We are talking about a survey that was done, right? Survey may, even if they've surveyed 100 people, we know for a fact two-thirds of the 100, so 66 people out of 100 think, they don't do it, they think that tax evasion is a trivial offense. So there's a difference between thinking and actually doing it and committing a crime. So option A is incorrect there. Stealing a newspaper is a bigger crime in Germany. Again, that was an opinion. That was not something that happens or is not something that is law. As long as the money is held in India, illicit money is accepted as practical by Indians, kind of makes sense. The third answer seems like a viable answer option right now. Indians regard tax evasion, especially holding illicit money abroad, as a serious crime. Indians regard holding money abroad as serious, but they don't regard tax evasion as serious because, as we know for a fact, they said there is Indian tax morality is similar. It makes a distinction between expatriate illicit money, which is viewed as serious crime perpetrated by the very corrupt, and money held within India, which is perceived as practical measure, right? So tax evasion, as long as it is about holding money in India, it is seen as practical. So Indians don't regard tax evasion as serious. Indians only regard holding illicit money abroad as serious crime, right? So 4 there kind of is incorrect because it fails to make the distinction that the passage very clearly talked about. So the only answer option that seems correct is option 3. All right, a Parajumbles question now. Okay, so let's read all the sentences. Hate speech is characterized by a deliberate targeting of communities rather than beliefs. Uh, and we know from the options that either a paragraph begins with A or it begins with D. The student body's activism has been criticized by detractors and it has been sought to be associated with hate speech. So, as the introductory sentence, A is telling us about what hate speech is. D, in rather, is setting context. What context, in what context are we talking about hate speech? We're talking about hate speech through, because the student body's activism has been criticized and it has been sought to be associated with hate speech. So D looks like a better introductory sentence. It is the opening sentence because it is setting context for the entire paragraph. After D, we can go to C. But such an association will be spurious. What kind of an association? The association that we're talking about here, associated with hate speech. But such an association will be spurious, as questioning orthodoxy and conservatism is not tantamount to hate speech. Then what is hate speech? Hate speech is characterized by a deliberate targeting of communities rather than beliefs, And finally, we go to the resolution that what the management must seek to do is to not let political discussions and debates to descend into vituperative attacks and hate speech. So D, C, A, B seems like a very logical arrangement of these sentences. Option 4 there becomes the best available option to us. Next question. Again, look at what is the object here. What are we talking about? What kind of subject verb agreement do we need here, or noun verb agreement do we need here? Figure that out. Cajuns speak a dialect brought to southern Louisiana by the 4,000 Acadians who migrated there in 1755. Their language is basically 17th century French, to which has been added English, Spanish, and Italian words. 17th century French, to which. So we're talking about English, Spanish, and Italian words being added to the language. This is what? This is plural, right? This is plural. Whereas to which has been added. The verb here is singular. What has been added? English, Spanish, and Italian words. This is plural, so the verb's got to be plural as well. So we eliminate A. Added to which is again singular. To which English, Spanish, and Italian words have been added. Kind of makes sense. Plural and plural. With English, Spanish, and Italian words having been added to it is unnecessary. Unnecessary usage of a pronoun. Eliminate D. And in addition, and in addition is again redundant, right? Why do we need two additive phrases, two additive words? So we eliminate E. C there becomes the best available option to us, to which English, Spanish, and Italian words have been added. Yes, does that make sense? Hope it suffices the explanation you would have needed. Let's move on to the next question now. The politician challenges the journalist's argument by doing which of the following? Another 30 seconds and then I'll discuss it. I hope you'd have arrived to your answer by then. All right. In late 1994, the present government of the Republic of Belam came into power. Each year since then, about 30 journalists have been imprisoned for printing articles that criticize the government. In 1994, under the old government, only 6 journalists were imprisoned for criticizing the government. So the old government was more tolerant of criticism by the press than the new one. So the journalist is putting context कि भाई तुमने 30 जर्नलिस्ट को इम्प्रिजन करा है जब से गवर्नमेंट आई है. The previous government had only imprisoned 6 journalists. So therefore, the journalist is concluding that the old government was more tolerant. New government is not very tolerant. What? How does the politician respond here? What does the politician say in response? Right. The politician therefore either says in 1994 only 6 journalists criticized the government and now journalists routinely do. So the journalist is setting context by saying, you know what, 6 journalists criticized them, so they were imprisoned. Now more journalists criticize, so we imprison them. The politician challenges the journalist's argument by doing which of the following. So now you have to evaluate what purpose the politician's argument is serving here. Right? A. Presenting data that extend further into the past than the journalist's data? No, not at all. It does not extend further into the past at all. Introducing evidence that undermines an assumption of the journalist's argument. Introducing evidence that undermines. So, the idea here is that the politician is telling us कि भाई उधर उस टाइम पे only 6 journalists had criticized, तो हमने उनको इम्प्रिजन करा था, अब और जर्नलिस्ट ने क्रिटिसाइज करा है. Right, so I'll put this on a back burner and see if I'm getting a better answer option or not. Otherwise, I think we should go with this. See, questioning the accuracy of the evidence presented in support of the journalist's conclusion. No, the politician did not question the accuracy. In fact, the politician used the same evidence, pointing out that the argument illegitimately draws a general conclusion on the basis of a sample of only a few cases. Uh, Not really, because what is the politician doing? Is the politician pointing out that the argument illegitimately draws a general conclusion? Not at all. Stating that the argument treats information about some members of a group as if it is applied to members of that group? Nope. The only answer option that goes along with the intention of the politician is the politician introduced some evidence where the politician said, the 6 journalists that you mentioned, in 1994, only the 6 of them had criticized us or the previous government, so they imprisoned them. Right? It undermines the assumption of the journalist's argument कि भाई assumption क्या थी? Assumption ये थी कि 6 जर्नलिस्ट इम्प्रिजन हुए थे उस टाइम पे, तो कंक्लूजन ये था कि भाई इन 6 जर्नलिस्ट उस टाइम पे प्रिजन हुए थे, अब 30 जर्नलिस्ट हुए हैं, तो उस टाइम की गवर्नमेंट टॉलरेंट थी, आज की गवर्नमेंट इनटॉलरेंट है. पॉलिटिशियन ने बोला कि ब्रो only 6 journalists at that point in time criticized the government, so only 6 were imprisoned. Today more journalists do, so more journalists are imprisoned. Now we're beginning with the reading comprehension. Hope you've read this by now. In her seminal work, The Continuum Concept, Jean Lidloff presents the controversial theory that Western methods of child rearing create the very problem these methods purport to eliminate: excessive dependency upon the caretaker. Lidloff contrasts her observations of modern American society with those of the Yikuana tribe of the Amazon, with whom she lived on four separate occasions spanning several years. So, what is this paragraph talking about? This paragraph is talking about the work of Jean Lidloff and her controversial theory that Western methods of child rearing create the very problem that they tried to eliminate. And then they tell us that, this is basically, she did this study by contrasting the methods of American society with that of an Amazonian tribe, Yikuana. ठीक है? So, context of the passage is set. Let's see what the study pertains to. Lidloff claims that all humans operate on a continuum and are generally, or rather genetically, predisposed to thrive under certain conditions. We also compensate for treatment which does not coincide with these optimal conditions by adapting our behavior to stabilize our psyches. A baby is in constant bodily contact with its caregiver, receives physical stimulation that allows the child to feel secure and right. In contrast, a child who is alone most of the time and left to cry it out does not receive the necessary physical contact. This creates a dependency in the child who soon develops that grasping need for attention, even negative attention. Lidloff contends that some parents fears that they will spoil their baby by holding it too much or by feeding it on demands are unreasonable and even detrimental to the child's mental health and social development. So this paragraph develops on the first one, that here we set context that we are talking about Jean Lidloff and her work, The Continuum Concept, right? We talk about how this entire study was about child rearing and how the American methods are creating the very problem that they try to eliminate. Then we know she did the study by contrasting her observations with those of the Yukwana tribe of Amazon. Paragraph 2 develops on it further by saying that, all humans, they operate on a continuum and they are genetically predisposed to thrive under certain conditions. And then the two conditions that she mentions here are a baby who is in constant contact versus a baby who is left alone, right? And then she talks about the mental impact of both these things, of the psychological impact of both these things, right? Next paragraph. Adults who've been deprived of their continuum needs as children often seek to establish themselves or stabilize themselves by engaging in self defeating or destructive behavior. Adults who've been deprived of their continuum needs as children often seek to stabilize themselves by engaging in self defeating or destructive behavior, which replicates the treatment to which they have become accustomed. Victims of emotionally barren parents may tend to seek mates who are domineering and cold, making true intimacy virtually impossible. Others may feel a lingering sense of guilt induced by a caregiver who never seemed to accept the child's existence. This guilt makes it difficult for an adult to feel peaceful or happy unless he is in crisis, either physically or emotionally. The unresolved feelings of shame from childhood do not allow the adult to live a pain free life. Right. So this paragraph is telling us about the continuum even further, about the kind of mental impact or psychological impact uh, things tend to have. Right. Case in point being victims of, sorry, give me a moment. Case in point, victims of emotionally barren parents, they seek cold and domineering mates. And then we talk about a sense of guilt that is induced by caregivers never who never seem to accept the child's existence, right? So this kind of impact is being mentioned in paragraph 3. Paragraph 4. Lidloff's critics argue that this form of attachment parenting does not enforce the natural hierarchy of parent over child in the family relationships. So this paragraph is setting further context, is giving us another perspective, which is of the critics of Lidloff. They argue that this form of attachment parenting does not enforce the natural hierarchy of parent over child in the family relationship. They stress that without a clear dominance of parent over child and discipline requiring the child to bend to the will of the parents from the moment of birth, the child does not develop a sense of right versus wrong. Many of these critics espouse more scientific methods of raising children that rely on regularly scheduled feedings in infancy and careful control of the child's environment as the child grows older. Lidloff's response right parental control is that tight parental control over the child undermines its natural impulses towards socially acceptable behavior. Without choice, Without choice, the child will not gain experience in making decisions and will be forced to look to an outside authority rather than use his own judgment, upsetting the balance of the continuum by co opting the child's natural ability to move toward independence and decision making skills, she asserts, ultimately results in a lack of maturity and self reliance in the adult. So, this entire paragraph first gives us Lidloff's critics' opinion, and then it tells us about Lidloff's response to this opinion. Right? Question 1. What is the primary purpose of the passage as a whole? Primary purpose means why did the author write this? Primary purpose is why did the author write it? Describe a strange phenomenon? Not really. If we are talking about the study of Lidloff, why are we calling it a strange phenomenon? Clarify a vague notion. There was no clarification of any vague notion that was offered in the comprehension. It was no vague thing, right? It was a study that she did. Condemn an ill informed opinion. Again, no, no condemnation was happening. Refute a grievous misconception. Support an alternative. Refute a grievous misconception. What was the misconception and what was being refuted? There was no misconception, just that Lidloff says that the American system is flawed in terms of American practice of child rearing is flawed. There was no misconception there. Support an alternative theory kind of makes sense. We start by talking about Lidloff's study, and then every paragraph further developed on it, talking about the study and what it is trying to tell us and the kind of results that she obtained, right? According to the passage, Lidloff believes that adults whose sense of continuum is denied to them as children, we've got five options. Let's follow the process of elimination and go through all the answer options. Option A. According to the passage, Lidloff believes that adults whose sense of continuum is denied to them as children are unable or unwilling to have children of their own. This is not something that they mention. Develop a strong sense of discipline and familial hierarchy. No. May suffer feelings of shame and inadequacy, kind of in sync with what the passage was trying to tell us, that they experience a lot of guilt, right? We'll take you back to the paragraph. This in Right. In contrast, a child who is alone most of the time and left to cry it out does not receive necessary this thing. This creates a dependency who soon develops a grasping need. It is detrimental to the child's mental and social development. Stabilize themselves by self defeating and destructive behavior. Uh, they may seek mates who are domineering and cold, intimacy virtually impossible. Guilt. This guilt makes it difficult for an adult to feel peaceful or happy, right? So we're talking about guilt and all the other things that they experience, and this answer option, therefore, yeah, they may suffer feelings of shame and inadequacy. It's kind of paraphrasing the entire point of how they will experience guilt or how they might experience a lot of pain, right? Seek mates whose strong sense of compassion can fill the void. No, they talked about how they might not be ever able to experience fulfilling relationships, are too self absorbed and domineering to become adequate caregivers. No. C seems like the most viable answer option here. Which of the following best describes the functions of the passage's fourth paragraph? Fourth paragraph was talking about critics, what are the critics trying to say, and then Lidloff's response to the critics. Right, this is what fourth paragraph was all about. Let's see what they are telling us. Option number A. It provides the reader the opportunity to see both Lidloff and her critics rebut each other's opinions. Okay, it resolves the argument between the two parenting schools by calling, did a resolution happen? I don't think any resolution happened. It undermines the passage's overall conclusion by suggesting maybe incomplete, not really. We had the critics giving their opinion and then Lidloff's response to that opinion. It stresses the need for all parents to establish their familial authority over their children. Again, not really. It was about critics and the opinion of the critics and Lydloff's response to the critics. It suggests that Lydloff would be willing to modify her theories and acknowledge the importance of more scientific methods, did not make any suggestion as such. It just provided the reader the opportunity to see both Lydloff and her critics rebut each other's opinions. Right? No further development happened there, apart from the rebuttals. According to the passage, which of the following qualifies as an adult behavior that disturbs the balance of the continuum? Line 54. Let's go back, read 54. Upsetting the balance of the continuum by co opting the child's natural ability to move toward independence and decision making skills, she asserts, ultimately results in lack of maturity. Okay. Option A, prematurely encouraging interaction with other children who are slightly older. That means we are nudging them towards independence. It is not disturbing the balance of continuum. Imposing a strict sleeping regimen regardless of the child's expression. This kind of is, right? You are imposing upon the independence of the child. See, resolving not to have children in order to stop the cycle of inadequate parenting. No. Providing the child with his own room as soon as is financially possible. Again, this is independence. This is not disturbing the continuum. Punishing a child who deliberately disobeys an order. Again, this is not about independence at all. It is about punishment. B looks like the most viable option, where you are imposing a strict sleeping regimen regardless of the child's expressed desire to sleep. So you're imposing upon the independence of the child. Right, so B seems like a viable option there. Right, so we're done with the passage now. Let's solve another reasoning question. The conclusion above would be more reasonably drawn if which of the following were inserted into the argument as an additional premise. Even though most universities retain the royalties from family members, faculty members' inventions, faculty members retain royalties from books and articles they write. So we know for a fact, universities they retain royalties from inventions, faculty members retain royalties from books and articles. Conclusion, therefore, faculty members should retain the royalties from educational computer software they develop. Now, the idea is we want to add something to the premise for the conclusion to be making sense, right? So the idea is, मेरे को पता है फैकल्टी मेंबर्स को रॉयल्टी तब मिलेगी जब वो बुक्स और आर्टिकल्स लिखेंगे और यूनिवर्सिटी रॉयल्टी रख लेंगे जब फैकल्टी मेंबर्स कुछ इन्वेंट करेंगे. तो अब इसमें इन ऑप्शंस में से इफ देयर इज समथिंग दैट एड्स टू द premise, that is added to the premise, it should be something that compares software with books and articles, right? If we are able to club them together, then it will probably make sense that faculty members retain royalty from the computer software, right? So that is the kind of option we have to be on the lookout for. Option A, royalties from inventions are higher than royalties from software programs. does not give me a valid enough reason as to why then faculty will still retain the royalty from the software, right? I need something more. Faculty members are more likely to produce software than inventions. Likelihood की बात नहीं है royalty पे. There has to be something else. See, inventions bring prestige to universities, more prestige to universities than do books and articles. Does not tell me anything about how much prestige software brings, so I'll eliminate C. D. In the experience of most universities, software programs are more marketable than our books and articles. If they are more marketable, then probably universities will make a lot of money if they retain royalties on these things, right? Again, eliminate D. E. In terms of the criteria used to award royalties, software are more nearly comparable to books and articles than to inventions. Makes perfect sense. फैकल्टी अगर बुक्स और आर्टिकल्स की रॉयल्टी रख रहे हैं तो वो सॉफ्टवेयर की भी इसलिए रखेंगे बिकॉज सॉफ्टवेयर इज मोर कंपेरेबल टू बुक्स एंड आर्टिकल्स दैन टू इन्वेंशंस. He makes the perfect amount of sense, right? Another question, a sentence correction question this time. Look at the correlative that is being used here. After suffering $2 billion in losses and 25,000 layoffs, the nation's semiconductor industry, which makes chips that run everything from computer and spy satellites from X, sorry, from X, as well as dishwashers, appears to have made a long awaited recovery. From X to Y is the correlative that we typically use. Chips that run everything from computer and spy satellites to dishwashers appears to have made a long awaited recovery. Kind of makes sense. Uh, A kind of makes sense. Computer spy satellites from X and Y does not make sense. Computer spy satellites again from X and Y does not make sense. Computers and spy satellites to dishwashers that it has appears that it has. After suffering $2 billion in losses and 25,000 layoffs, the nation's semiconductor industry, which makes chips that run everything from computers and spy satellites, appears that it has does not make as much sense. Appears to have is more direct, appears to have is more crisp. Nation semiconductor industry appears to have made a long awaited recovery, right? Appears that it has is unnecessary construction, right? So A makes the maximum amount of sense. From X to Y satisfy हो रहा है अपना. From computers and spy satellites to dishwashers appears to have made a long awaited recovery, right? So with this we end today's class. You guys, thank you so much for joining in. Thank you so much for joining in, for tuning in. Hope you had fun. We covered quite a lot of questions today pertaining to reasoning, parajumbles, RC, and sentence correction. I'll join you again tomorrow, same time, 9:30 a.m., and we'll do another drill. Till then, stay safe, stay strong, and stay mellow.